The Achaemenid Empire, also known as the First Persian Empire, was one of the most significant civilizations of the ancient world. Founded by Cyrus the Great, and spanning from approximately 550 BC to 330 BC, the empire reached its peak under rulers like Darius the Great and Xerxes. At its height, it encompassed vast territories across 3 continents, including present-day Iran, Iraq, Egypt, Turkey, and even as far as parts of the Indian subcontinent. But it wasn't all a conquest. They were known for their administrative innovations, extensive road networks, and tolerance of diverse cultures and religions. And that's the topic for the day. Hello and welcome to the channel. If you are new here, it's good to meet you. And if you're coming back, it's great to see you again for another video. If you'd like to support the channel, perhaps head over to my Patreon. Otherwise, if you feel inclined to like, comment, and subscribe, that goes a long, long way. Now, without further ado, let's get on with our video today. A short history of the Achaemenid Empire. Let's start from the beginning. The Achaemenid Empire, a formidable ancient civilization, traces its origins to the Persian people, who migrated to the region of modern-day Iran around 1000 BC. Initially nomadic pastoralists, the Persians settled in northwestern Iran, the Zagros Mountains, the Persis, alongside the indigenous Elamites. While the Achaemenids were not the first Iranian empire, their rise to power was significant. They originally ruled from the Elamite city of Anshan, present-day Marvdasht, with titles such as King of Anshan inherited from the Elamite predecessors. The lineage of the earliest kings of Anshan is still a subject of debate, with conflicting accounts in historical records, of which there are many. Well, according to the Cyrus cylinder, key figures include Tapestry, Cyrus I, Cambyses I, and Cyrus II, famously known as Cyrus the Great, who established the empire. However, later inscriptions like the Behistun inscription present differing genealogies, with Tapestry being attributed as the son of Achaemenes. Herodotus's histories introduce Cyrus the Great as the son of Cambyses I and Mandane of Media, highlighting the empire's intricate familial and historical complexities. Well, however it is, we'll do our best to work it out. Now, in the 550s BC, Cyrus initiated a revolt against the Median Empire, culminating in a decisive victory in 550, which saw him overthrow Astyages, the Median king, and seize control of the capital city of Ecbatana. Asserting himself as Astyages' successor, Cyrus assumed dominion over the entire empire. However, this acquisition of power came with inherited problems, such as territorial disputes with the neighboring powers, notably Lydia and the formidable Neo-Babylonian Empire. Remember, we inherit a world out of the Bronze Age. Characters such as Sargon of Akkad and great rulers such as these had already forged the landscape by the sword. And the Neo-Babylonian Empire, well, they were certainly a tough cookie. Now, during the 540s BC, King Croesus of Lydia saw an opportunity to expand into former Median territories in Asia Minor. In response to this, Cyrus quickly launched a successful counterattack, resulting in the capture of Sardis and the downfall of the Lydian kingdom in 546. Despite initially appointing Pactyes to oversee Lydia, a rebellion erupted in his absence. Cyrus swiftly dispatched the Median generals Mazares and later Harpagus to quell the uprising, leading to the subjugation of Lydia over a 4-year period. Now the transition of power from the Medes to the Persians prompted various revolts among the tributaries of the Median Empire, compelling Cyrus to confront rebellions in regions such as Bactria and Central Asia against the Saka nomads. To consolidate control, Cyrus established garrison towns, including the notable Syropolis, across Central Asia during these campaigns. Now that leads us to the period between 547 and 539, where the details of the Persia-Babylon relations remain a little unclear, although it is probable that tensions had simmered down somewhat between the two empires in the years leading up to the conflict of 540 to 539, culminating in the eventual fall of Babylon. Now in October 539, Cyrus achieved a significant victory against the Babylonians at Opis, before swiftly taking control of Sippar and eventually capturing Babylon completely on October the 12th. Nabonidus, the Babylonian king, was subsequently slapped in irons and taken captive. Talk about a fall from grace. Well, upon seizing Babylon, and this was a big deal, Cyrus embarked on a propaganda campaign portraying himself as a restorer of divine order disrupted by Nabonidus, who had favored the cult of sin over Marduk. Now, when I say cult of sin, don't think sin as in our Christian or Judeo-Semitic sort of wording. Sin was just the name of another god in their pantheon. Although the cult of sin sounds like a pretty good name for a metal band, doesn't it? Although Marduk is the name of a metal band, so, well, that's where they got their ideas. Anyway, I digress. He also sought to revive the legacy of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, drawing parallels with the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal. The Hebrew Bible also commends Cyrus for his conquest of Babylon, hailing him as chosen by Yahweh. Why is this? Well, you see, Cyrus is credited with liberating the people of Judah from exile and sanctioning the reconstruction of Jerusalem, including the Second Temple. But that was destroyed again some 800 years later by the Romans. But that's a different video. Now in 530 BC, Cyrus passed away, likely during a military campaign against the Massagetæ in Central Asia. He was succeeded by his eldest son, Cambyses II, who swiftly expanded Persian territory, subduing Phoenicia and Cyprus by 525 BC. Cambyses then set his sights on Egypt, with plans for invasion aided by the Persian navy. And Egypt was a big one, because they were one of the main players in the Bronze Age, and actually one of the few kingdoms that had survived the collapse. The rest of them tended to go out like a spent candle, almost. Now, the death of Pharaoh Amasis II in 526 led to defections to the Persian side, culminating in the Battle of Pelusium, where Psamtik III was defeated, and once again, as was a custom of the Achaemenids, slapped in irons and captured. Now Herodotus, the Greek historian, portrays Cambyses as openly hostile towards Egyptian culture and religion, emphasizing his desecration of sacred symbols and temples, and notably the murder of the sacred Apis bull. Allegations of Cambyses' descent into madness, leading to fratricide and other atrocities, are widely documented in classical sources, although some historical evidence contradicts these accounts, suggesting participation in religious rites associated with the Apis funeral in 524. But the general consensus is Cambyses went a little bit off the rails. Now, after consolidating his control over Egypt, Cambyses II turned his attention to further expansion, encountering relatively little resistance from the Libyans and Greeks of Cyrene and Barca, who submitted and paid tribute without any significant conflict. Intent on extending Persian influence in Africa, Cambyses planned invasions of Carthage, the oasis of Ammon, and Ethiopia. While the naval assault on Carthage was purportedly aborted due to reluctance from Phoenician sailors, historians question the veracity of this claim. Nevertheless, Cambyses focused his efforts on campaigns against Ammon and Ethiopia, seeking to fortify Persian positions in the region. Cambyses established a garrison at Elephantine, manned primarily by Jewish soldiers, to secure strategic points in the western oases and consolidate Persian control. Although Herodotus attributes the failure of the Ethiopian campaign to Cambyses' alleged madness and logistical issues, archaeological evidence suggests the continued Persian presence in the region. Just quickly about Herodotus. It's best that whenever you read something from Herodotus, you take it with a substantial grain of salt, especially when he's talking about the numbers of battles and things like this. Often you will hear him making these big exaggerations, such as, 1,000,000 Persians held off by 10,000 Greeks, something like this. So it's best that we take that source with a little bit of peer review. Now, the circumstances surrounding Cambyses' demise and the ascension of his brother Bardia, also known as Smerdis, are also a subject of debate. According to Herodotus, notoriously reliable, 2 magi seized power by exploiting Bardia's resemblance to the deceased prince. Alternatively, Ctesias suggests that Cambyses appointed a magus named Svendatades as a satrap of Bactria after Bardia's demise, leading to a conspiracy to replace Cambyses with the impostor Bardia. Well, the Behistun inscription, authored by Darius the Great, presents yet another version of events, implicating a magus named Gaumata in inciting revolution in Persia. Regardless of the differing accounts, Cambyses received word of the revolt in 522 and commenced a journey back to Persia, only to perish from an injury sustained in Syria. This paved the way for Bardia's impostor to assume the throne, although doubts persist regarding the authenticity of the accounts surrounding these events. Regardless, it makes for a rather interesting story, I'm sure you agree. Now, according to the Behistun inscription, Gaumata's reign lasted for about 7 months, until he was deposed in 522 by Darius the Great, also known as Dara Yarahush. Despite the persecution of the Magi, they also persisted, leading to another attempt at usurpation by the second pseudo-Smerdis named Vayasdatta a year after Gautama's death. Ultimately, it was unsuccessful. And just quickly, the Magi, while the name does, yes, invoke the reference to the word magic, they were effectively astronomers and astrologers, that sort of thing, with quite an understanding of the heavens. In fact, the 3 wise men that visit Jesus in the Old Testament, New Testament rather, they were reportedly Magi from the East, who had came to give gifts. Whether you believe that or not, well, let's continue. Now, Herodotus also elaborates on the aftermath of these events, stating that the indigenous leadership engaged in debates regarding the optimal form of governance for the empire and ultimately decided a few different courses of action. Well, after all, it is all down to the king, and we'll get to him soon. Well, since the surrender of Macedon to the Persians, around 512 to 511 by King Amyntas I, Macedonians and Persians actually became intertwined in various ways. This marked the beginning of a period of interaction and collaboration between the two cultures, under the initiative of Darius the Great, who lived from 521 to 486 BC. Persian military operations expanded into the Balkans in 513, with a massive army invading the region. This campaign aimed to conquer European Scythians north of the Danube River, leading to the subjugation of several Thracian peoples and other territories along the European Black Sea coast. Darius appointed Megabazus to oversee further conquests in the Balkans, resulting in the subjugation of gold-rich Thrace, coastal Greek cities, and the powerful Paeonians. Macedon, too, fell under Persian domination after King Amyntas submitted to Persian authority. This period saw extensive intermarriage between Macedonian and Persian elites, fostering strong familial ties between the two powers. The Persian invasion contributed to Macedonia's rise in power, as the Macedonians became willing allies of the Persians, aiding them in conflicts against Athens and Sparta. Persians often referred to both Greeks and Macedonians as Yauna, with the Macedonians specifically identified as Greeks with hats that look like shields. Okay then. By the 5th century BC, the Persian Empire expanded to encompass vast territories, including the Persian Plateau, Mesopotamia, the Levant, Egypt, Armenia, parts of the Caucasus, and Central Asia, with regions as far as Afghanistan, Pakistan, and even parts of North Africa. Very impressive for the time. The Ionian Revolt, which spanned from 499 to 493 BC, was a pivotal event in ancient history, marking the first major conflict between Greece, as we know it, and the Achaemenid Empire, also known as this Persian Empire as well, so don't get those two confused thinking they're different things. Now this revolt arose from dissatisfaction of Greek cities in Asia Minor, present-day Turkey, with the tyrants that were appointed by Darius. The catalyst was the failed expedition led by Aristogoras, the tyrant of Miletus, who sought to conquer the island of Naxos to bolster his position both financially and in terms of prestige, which was indeed an extremely common and rather acceptable war justification. However, the mission ended in disaster, prompting Aristogoras to incite all of Ionia into rebellion against Persian rule. The time was right. Well, the Persians responded by systematically subduing the rebellious cities along the coast of Asia Minor, eventually imposing a peace settlement in 493. However, Darius had a rather bad taste in his mouth from all this, and he vowed to punish Athens and Eretria for their support of the Ionian revolt, viewing the political situation in Greece as a threat to the stability of his own empire. In 492, the Persian general Mardonius re-subjugated Thrace and fully incorporated Macedonia as a part of the Achaemenid Empire. The following year, Darius launched an invasion of Greece to assert Persian dominance in the region. Despite initial successes, very many initial successes, including the sacking of Athens, the Persians faced a fierce resistance from the Greek forces, notably at the Battle of Marathon in 490. While 4 years later, Darius's death led the invasion unfinished, but his successor, Xerxes, resolved to fulfill his father's ambition. No doubt you're familiar with him. Well, in 480 BC, Xerxes launched a massive invasion of Greece, and they were doing very well, until they got to the Battle of Thermopylae, where they faced the 300 Spartans, and around 7,000 other Greeks. But of course, saying that they faced the 300 Spartans, well, that sells a few more movies and books, doesn't it? But it wasn't just that defeat. It was also Artemisium and the naval battle of Salamis that really put the nail in the coffin for them. Now, they were initially successful, but this defeat at Salamis forced Xerxes to retreat. The Greeks had effectively won, at least for now. The following year, the Greek forces, led by the Spartan general Pausanias, achieved another resounding victory over the Persians at the Battle of Plataea, effectively ending the Persian invasion of Greece for good. The Battle of Plataea, coupled with the concurrent Greek victory at Mycale, led to the liberation of Greek cities in Asia Minor and the loss of Persian territories in Europe. And the Greeks were very happy because they could go back to fighting each other again. And very soon after that, Athens and Sparta began a war over territory and resources and all the rest. If there's anything the Greeks hate more than the Persians, it's each other. What a shame. Now, old Xerxes, he wasn't around for much longer, because he was assassinated by Artabanus, the commander of the royal bodyguard, ironically, marked the end of his reign, though the exact circumstances surrounding his death, well, that's another topic of debate. Either way, it's somewhat reminiscent of the Praetorian Guard situation over in Rome. Be very careful who you choose for your bodyguards. Now, following this assassination, Artaxerxes I, his son, ascended to the Persian throne, and during his reign he made some significant changes. Notably, Elamite ceased to be the language of government, with Aramaic gaining importance, and it's also speculated that the solar calendar was introduced as the national calendar during this time. Additionally, under Artaxerxes, Zoroastrianism became the de facto religion of the empire. The period saw a shift in Persian strategy towards Greece. After Persia's defeat at the Battle of Eurymedon, Artaxerxes pursued a policy of weakening the Athenians by supporting their adversaries in Greece. This led to the relocation of the treasury of the Delian League from Delos to the Athenian Acropolis. Consequently, tensions between Persia and Greece reignited again, culminating in renewed hostilities, notably in the Battle of Cyprus in 450. Well, despite all these conflicts, Artaxerxes I demonstrated diplomatic skill by offering asylum to Themistocles, the one who wiped the floor with them at the Battle of Salamis, who had been ostracized from Athens. Well, you see, Themistocles was granted various cities and provisions, including Magnesia, Myus, Percote, and Lampsacus, underscoring Artaxerxes' willingness to extend the hand of protection to influential figures from rival states, and no doubt the Athenians were certainly raising a few eyebrows, if not shaking a few fists, at his defection. Well, upon Artaxerxes' death in 424 at Susa, his body was interred in the tomb that had been prepared for him at Nash-e-Rustam necropolis, in accordance with Persian tradition, where kings would begin construction of their own tombs while still alive. Dig your own grave and save. He was succeeded by his eldest legitimate son, Xerxes II. However, Xerxes II's reign was also short-lived, as he was assassinated while he was off his head drunk by Pharnakias of Menostanis, on the orders of his illegitimate brother Sogdianus, who swiftly ascended to the throne. Of course, coming to power this way implies that your rule is not going to be very stable. Sogdianus only lasted for 6 months and 15 days, before he was overthrown and executed by his half-brother Ochus, who subsequently took the royal name Darius II, and his ascension ended the brief power vacuum, managing to restore a much-needed stability to the empire. During Darius II's reign, Persia's foreign policy oscillated, with shifting alliances between Athens and Sparta. Ultimately, Sparta emerged victorious over Athens in 404, and they actually had a lot of help from Persia. Old enemies into friends, it seems. However, Darius II's reign was marked by internal strife as well. It wasn't easy, including the rise of his son Cyrus the Younger, who attempted to seize the throne but was thwarted by Artaxerxes II, his elder brother. Now Artaxerxes II's reign was quite lengthy, 45 years, pretty good in contrast to 6 months and 15 days, and it brought relative peace and stability to the Achaemenid Empire. It was during this period that many monumental constructions were undertaken, including the extension of the capital at Persepolis and the lavish expansion of the summer capital at Ecbatana. Additionally, Zoroastrian shrines proliferated under his reign, spreading throughout Asia Minor and the Levant. These constructions, while serving religious purposes, also generated significant income for the empire through mandatory temple taxes, a concept adopted from the rather clever Babylonian kings of former times. Artaxerxes II's reign was also marked by significant military and diplomatic maneuvers, particularly in relation to Greece and Egypt, the two big players. He became embroiled in the Corinthian War, siding with Sparta against Athens and its allies. However, he later betrayed Sparta and brokered the Treaty of Antalcidas, which restored Persian control over Greek cities in Ionia and Aeolus, while granting Sparta dominance of the Greek mainland. In addition to his conflicts in Greece, Artaxerxes faced challenges from the Egyptians, who had revolted against Persian rule at the start of his reign. Despite an unsuccessful attempt to reconquer Egypt in 373, the Persians eventually defeated a joint Egyptian-Spartan effort to conquer Phoenicia. Artaxerxes II also suppressed the revolt of the satraps from 372 to 362, asserting his authority over the provinces of the empire. His reign was characterized by a complex family life, with numerous wives and a vast number of sons. Do you want to take a guess how many? Well, apparently, he had over 115 sons from around 350 wives. Call Maury Povich, you are the father. Well, upon his death in 358 BC, and certainly a very large funeral, I'm sure, Artaxerxes II was succeeded by his son Artaxerxes III, who continued his father's policies. Now, he compelled Athens to conclude a peace agreement, forcing the city's forces to withdraw from Asia Minor and recognize the independence of its rebellious allies. Additionally, he embarked on a campaign against the rebellious Kassudians, successfully managing to pacify them and laying the groundwork for the rise of Darius Cudamanus, who would later ascend to the Persian throne as Darius III. Artaxerxes III's reign was marked by significant military campaigns and political upheavals, particularly in Asia Minor and Egypt. He ordered the disbandment of satrapal armies in Asia Minor, fearing that they could spark revolts against him. However, this decree was deified by Artabazos II of Phrygia, leading to a rebellion supported by Athens. Despite initial victories by the rebels, they were defeated by Artaxerxes' forces in 353. In 351 BC, Artaxerxes III launched a campaign to reconquer Egypt, which had revolted during the reign of his father. Simultaneously, a rebellion erupted in Asia Minor, supported by Thebes, posing a serious threat to Persian control. Artaxerxes led a vast army into Egypt, but suffered a decisive defeat at the hands of the Egyptian pharaoh Nectanebo II. Forced to retreat, Artaxerxes postponed his plans to reclaim Egypt. Rebellions also erupted in other places: Cyprus, Asia Minor, Phoenicia. They all did their part to destabilize the Persian control in the region. In 343, Artaxerxes entrusted the suppression of the Cyprian rebels to Idreus of Caria, who employed Greek mercenaries led by Phocion the Athenian. Despite initial successes in Cyprus, the Persian forces suffered defeats in Phoenicia at the hands of Tennes, aided by Greek mercenaries sent by Nectanebo II. Now, undeterred, Artaxerxes personally was at the helm of a massive army against Sidon, seeking Greek assistance. Although refused aid by Athens and Sparta, he managed to secure support from Thebes, Argos, and various Greek cities in Asia Minor. With his coalition, Artaxerxes besieged Sidon, and upon its fall, subjected its inhabitants to brutal reprisals, resulting in the death of thousands and the city's complete destruction. Artaxerxes' ruthlessness extended to his treatment of Jews who supported the revolt, whom he sent into exile at Hyrcania. His reign was characterized by this relentless pursuit of centralization and control, marked by military campaigns and harsh reprisals against those who dared to challenge Persian authority. Well, following the reduction and liquefaction of Sidon, Artaxerxes III turned his attention to the invasion of Egypt, the big one, in 343 BC. Alongside his formidable Persian army of 330,000 soldiers, he enlisted the support of 14,000 Greek mercenaries supplied by various Greek cities of Asia Minor. These Greek forces were divided into 3 groups, each led by a Persian and Greek commander. The Greek commanders included Lacrates of Thebes, Mentor of Rhodes, Nicostratus of Argos, while the Persian leaders were Rosakes, Aristazanes, and Bagawas. Now facing Artaxerxes III was the Egyptian pharaoh Nectanebo, who commanded an army of 100,000 troops, and that included 20,000 Greek mercenaries. Nectanebo II strategically utilized the Nile River and its tributaries, which they knew a lot better than the Persians did, as well as his powerful navy, to defend Egypt's territory. The terrain, crisscrossed by canals and fortified towns, initially favored Nectanebo's defensive strategy. However, he wasn't so smart after all. His overconfidence in his own leadership abilities, and rather a lack of competent generals, led to tactical errors that allowed the combined Persian forces to outmaneuver and ultimately defeat the Egyptian army. Despite initial resistance, Nectanebo's forces were overwhelmed by the superior tactics and coordination of the Persians and Greeks. As Persians' victories mounted, Egyptian defenses crumbled, leading to the rapid conquest of numerous towns across Lower Egypt. Now facing the imminent fall of Memphis, Nectanebo II made the fateful decision to just abandon Egypt and flee southward to Ethiopia, where he could be safe and sound. while with Nectanebo's flight, the Persian army achieved complete victory, occupying the lower delta of the Nile. The remaining Egyptian garrisons, composed of both Greek and Egyptian troops, were simply unable to withstand the Persian onslaught, leading to the swift submission of all of Egypt to the rule of Artaxerxes III. Oh, and what about the Jews residing in Egypt? Well, they were either deported to Babylon or relocated to the south coast of the Caspian Sea, mirroring the fate of their counterparts from Phoenicia. Now, in the aftermath of this conquest, Artaxerxes implemented harsh measures to solidify Persian control over Egypt. He ordered the destruction of city walls, initiated a reign of terror, and looted temples to accumulate wealth for Persia. It didn't help that high taxes were imposed to weaken Egypt's ability to revolt, and to raise money, of course. Believers in the native religion were also persecuted at every level, and sacred texts, well, they were stolen and hidden away. Now, before departing for Persia, Artaxerxes appointed Pharandares as the satrap of Egypt, ensuring continued Persian administration of the conquered territory. This successful invasion of Egypt further enriched Artaxerxes III, allowing him to generously reward his mercenaries upon his return to the Persian capital. After consolidating all of his control over Egypt, he turned his attention to quelling insurrections and rebellions across the Persian Empire, internal issues that were plaguing the Persian Empire for quite some time. Over the next few years, he effectively suppressed any and all challenges to his rule, and he had the power to do so, ensuring that the empire was firmly under his control. Egypt remained a part of the Persian Empire until its conquest by Alexander the Great. Now, following all of these successes, Artaxerxes faced no further revolts or rebellions within his empire. Mentor and Bagos, two generals who had distinguished themselves in the Egyptian campaign, were awarded with high-ranking positions. Mentor, appointed governor of the entire Asiatic seaboard, played a crucial role in pacifying regions that had rebelled against Persian rule, and under his leadership, the Asian Mediterranean coast was brought into complete submission and dependence. Meanwhile, Bagos returned to the Persian capital and became instrumental in the internal administration of the empire, ensuring stability throughout all of its territories. During the final years of Artaxerxes III's reign, the Persian Empire experienced a period of vigorous, successful, and stable governance. While in the Mediterranean region, Persian forces regained control of Ionia and Lycia, asserting dominance over the Aegean and Mediterranean seas. They also expanded into territories formerly held by Athens, consolidating Persian influence in the region. Despite calls from figures like Isocrates for a crusade, to use those terms, against the Persians, Greek city-states, well, they simply lacked the strength and the unity and the money to mount a significant resistance, if a resistance at all. They all agreed the game was simply not worth the candle. Well, Artaxerxes recognized the growing power of Philip II of Macedon at this time, and sought to contain Macedonian influence And if you don't recognize the name, that's Alexander the Great's dad. Well, he ordered Persian forces to assist the Thracian prince Cersobleptes in maintaining his independence and aiding the city of Perinthus against Philip's siege. However, by the end of Artaxerxes' reign, Philip II had already formulated plans for an invasion of the Persian Empire, but he didn't get the support from the rest of the Greeks. Well, Artaxerxes, as formidable as he was, he couldn't live forever, right? He was actually poisoned by Bagaus, that general whom he gave so much to, with the assistance of a physician, and this marked the end of his reign. What a way to go. After his death, Artaxerxes IV briefly ascended to the throne, only to be poisoned by Bagaus again. Well, after that, they orchestrated the massacre of Arce's children and many other princes. Bagaus himself installed Darius III, a nephew of Artaxerxes IV, as the new ruler. However, the tables turn, and somebody pulled the Uno reverse card, because Darius III later forced Bagaus to consume the same poison himself. Have a taste of your own medicine, Bagaus. Well, he ended up deep underground. In 334, as Darius III was attempting to subdue Egypt, which had kicked off again, Alexander the Great invaded Asia Minor with his battle-hardened troops, in their battle-hardened phalanx nonetheless. Well, Alexander's conquest of Persia just had victory after victory. First it was the Battle of Granicus in 334, then the Battle of Issus in 333, and then Gaugamela, the big one, in 331 BC. Subsequently, he captured Susa and Persepolis, both of which surrendered in the early of 330 BC. He then marched north to Pasargadae, where he visited the tomb of Cyrus the Great. Upon reaching Cyrus's tomb, Alexander was reportedly dismayed by its desecration and questioned the magi responsible. He ordered Aristobulus to restore the tomb's interior, showing respect for Cyrus's memory. From there, he proceeded to Ecbatana, where Darius III, the ruler of the Persian Empire, or at least what was left of it, had sought refuge. Darius was eventually betrayed by his Bactrian satrap Persis, who murdered him and declared himself Darius's successor, Artaxerxes V. Well, Persis attempted to rally forces against Alexander, but he was apprehended and executed in a very cruel manner by Alexander, who feared the threat of Persis gaining control. Well, following Alexander's death in 323, his empire was divided among his generals, resulting in the establishment of smaller states. The old territories of the Achaemenid Empire, the places that the Persians ruled, were divided among different Macedonians. The new Seleucid Empire, ruled by Alexander's general Seleucus I Nicator, held sway over the Iranian plateau. However, native Iranian rule was later restored by the Parthians, who founded the Parthian Empire in the northeastern area of Iran during the 2nd century BC. well, that is another video entirely. Now, I think there we can conclude our video on the Achaemenids. Did you learn something? I'm sure you did. Some very interesting characters there. And quite a lot of poisoning in this video, I must say. Well, I would like to thank my Mega Chat tier patron Stark Factory. And if you would like to become a patron of my work, then you can click the links in the description and the comments, and you also know to like, comment, and subscribe if you feel inclined to do so. But most importantly, I'd like to wish you all the best, and I will see you in the next video, friend. Good night. See you next time.